Now, are you someone that is worried that you might have weak or brittle bones? What if I told you that there are activities out there that have been shown that can improve the strength and the density of your bones? Now, why is this important? Now, as we get older, we tend to lose bone mass, especially women who are postmenopausal. And if this goes on without being addressed, this can lead to conditions like osteopenia or osteoporosis, which increases our risk for fractures. But we now know that based on the research and science, progressive resistance training, as in the use of weights and weight-bearing impact activities, can stimulate bone formation and is the best exercise prescription for improving bone mineral density. Now, obviously, when it comes to your own bone health, there's a lot more involved in improving your own bone markers. And it's important that you're having these conversations with your own doctor to figure out which interventions best fit your needs. But at the end of the day, what you can do to strengthen your bones is by incorporating exercises that are weight-bearing and that include some type of progressive overload. You might also be asking, well, I don't have osteoporosis or osteopenia, so this video doesn't really apply to me, right? Wrong. This actually applies to everyone, men and women. We all should want stronger bones as we age to reduce the risk fracture and improve our bone health. Now let's get into some of my favorite exercises to help stimulate bone formation and improve bone mineral density. Now, one of the first ways in improving your bone function is by including some squats into your routine. So I preferably love the barbell squat to really help build the strength in your quadricep muscles and to also help increase the force and the load that is being distributed through your hips. And that's the key here, weight bearing and progressive overload with these resistive exercises. So we're gonna step into underneath a barbell. You're gonna pull the barbell away and you're gonna get in about a hip width apart with your stance. Now, as you lower, you're allowing those hips to reach back towards you. You're trying to keep your shins as vertical as possible. You're gonna feel your glutes and your quadricep muscles working, and then you're gonna push through the ground and stand all the way back up. Notice I'm not allowing my chest to kind of come forward. I'm trying my best to sit up nice and tall at the bottom of the squat, okay? Now, for some of you, you might feel like that's just kind of too difficult. Like you've never stepped underneath the barbell and it kind of can get very intimidating for people. So for beginners, I will typically start them off with the goblet squat. And basically this is when you're holding a weight in your front rack position, so you can still practice the squat mechanics, except now instead of the load like the barbell being on your neck and on your back, now the load's gonna be out in front. So you really have to master those squat mechanics, okay? So with a weight or a dumbbell, you can use a kettlebell for this as well. You're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna start with your feet about hip width apart. You're gonna allow those hips to sag backwards and downward. You're gonna squat down with that kettlebell, and then you're gonna stand back up. Also notice that the kettlebell is close to my body and I'm not keeping it out in front of me. I'm keeping it nice and close over my base of support, and then I'm standing all the way back up. Now, eventually the goblet squat is gonna get too easy for you, so you're gonna wanna progress yourself by adding more load by using the barbell squat. Now, one way I like to ease into the barbell squat and to develop coordination and control is by starting beginners off with the box squat. And I've created a video on the box squat, so if you haven't checked out that video, I'll go ahead and link that in the description below. Either way, the squat pattern must be in your fitness program. Now, the next exercise, which I think is extremely functional, is the step-up exercise. The reason why it's so functional is because on everyday living, when we're out in the community, we're constantly using steps or going up stairs or curbs, and we have to have the ability to transfer that weight up and over a step. And the reason why I like it the most is it strengthens one leg at a time when you're performing this. Unlike the squat, you're gonna be training both legs at the same time. We would call that a double limb exercise versus a step up exercise. This is a single limb exercise. So you're really gonna be able to identify weaknesses between one leg and the other. Now, when you're starting this, the higher the step that you practice on, the more difficult that this exercise will be for you. So you might want to start off with maybe a 3 or 4 inch step, and then as you get better and you're able to perform maybe 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions on each side, then you're going to allow yourself to increase the height of the step to maybe 6 inches or 8 inches. Also notice that I am holding onto something here. So if you're new to this exercise, you might want to hold on at first for balance, and then as you get better, you're using solely your leg to control yourself. So I'm gonna, for demonstration purposes, show you on my left leg here, and that left leg is gonna step onto the step. You're gonna allow your trunk to slightly lean forward, you're gonna step up, and then you're gonna lower yourself back down slowly, okay? Once again, you're stepping up and lowering down slowly. So you're gonna feel all that load through the hip, through the quadricep muscle, which is gonna be really good for building strong hips, building strong bones, and allow you to really attack those weaknesses from one leg to the other. So the third exercise we're gonna go over is implementing some type of hip hinge or deadlift pattern. Now we know that the hip hinge pattern is extremely important for not only just functional use, but also for instilling a safe pattern for picking up objects off the ground. So if we think about the hip hinge pattern, it's simply, instead of us reaching down to pick something up where we're flexing our lower spine, we're actually hinging our hips and reaching our hips back, getting some nice movement of the hips where it's gonna stimulate and work a lot of our hamstrings and our glute muscles. So the deadlift exercise is a great exercise for this. Now, once again, if the barbell right now is just too intimidating, you can start off with some hip hinges by carrying like a backpack or a load or something in front. If you're doing this at home, you can simply just hold on to the object in front, and you can still work on standing up nice and tall, and you're hinging those hips backward, having a slight bend in the knees. You're coming forward. Also notice that my back tries to stay neutral and I'm not flexing my spine. I try to keep the weight close to my body, and then I'm standing back up. Once again, I'm reaching those hips back, little bend in the knees. I'm not fully locked out like this, slight bend in the knees. Reach, 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 reach until you feel like those hamstrings kind of pull that tension, and that's as far as you can go, and then you're standing back up. This is also gonna train a lot of the erectors and lower back muscles that are really important in keeping your lower back strong and your spine stable, okay? After the weight in the front becomes too easy, we can then begin to progress to a deadlift with a kettlebell or a dumbbell. And this is where you're stepping simply over the weight. And I've demonstrated this in some of my other videos here. And you're basically reaching down to pick up the object. And now you're using your hamstrings and your glute muscles to stand completely all the way up. Then you're hinging all the way back, lowering back down. And if you do this correctly, you're really gonna feel a lot of those glute muscles really firing, even the hamstrings firing. And as a result, those muscles all around the hip are gonna get stronger and are gonna help provide more stability around the hip socket. So as I mentioned earlier, progressive overload is gonna be key. So deadlifting with just a kettlebell is going to get too easy, and you're gonna eventually need to load the weight using a barbell so you can add more weights on the very end. And we've seen tons of people over the age of 40, 50, 60 deadlifting with safe technique, and it's perfectly safe for your body. So once you're using the barbell, your hands are gonna go about shoulder width apart, and you're gonna keep that barbell really close to your shins. Now notice I'm already set up in that hip hinge position. I'm not squatting down like this, but my butt's not also straight out just like this. So you actually have a slight hinge at your hips when you're starting, and pushing through the ground is the biggest key with this exercise. You're gonna push your feet into the ground and stand all the way back up, okay? So you're gonna stand up, and then while reaching those hips backward, you're trying to keep that barbell nice and close to your body. You're gonna lower back down. Now the key with this barbell movement is to ensure that as you're setting up, you really think about pulling tension on the bar and feeling the lat muscles back here kicking on. So almost like you're pulling the bar close to your body before you start rising. Because if you just come and pick up the bar and then you start lifting, I already feel immediate stress on the lower back. So it's important that you keep the load close, and that you really put that preload tension on the lats before you start standing up. So I set up, put that preload by pulling that barbell close to my body. I'm gonna stand up nice and tall by pushing through the ground, and then I'm gonna lower myself by hinging my hips backward, keeping the bar as close as I can with nice and control. It's important that with the deadlift that you focus on feeling it in your glutes and in your hamstrings, and you're going slow with each repetition, and you're not rebounding off the ground and going very fast, because it's gonna throw your entire technique off. So take your time and go slow with this one. Now the fourth exercise that we're gonna go over, which we know that is extremely effective in improving bone formation, increasing bone density, is by incorporating some high impact weight bearing activities. One of the best ways that we can do this is by simply jumping. Now, you can do this by working on a simple jump rope, which most of us have probably tested, and that seems like a very conservative thing to do to start with. But one of my favorite ways is by adding in some box jumps. And obviously a box jump seems very intimidating, but depending on the height of the step, you can really start yourself up very basic and with a small step, especially if this is very fearful for you. But as you get more comfortable, you can work on increasing the height, just like on the step up, to make this exercise more challenging. So simply, you're gonna start off with a small box, and you're gonna kind of set yourself up with, once again, kind of like a hip width apart, okay? You're gonna have a slight bend in your knees, and you're gonna use your arms to create some momentum. And essentially what this is instilling and creating is working on this hip extension explosive pattern. So not only is this beneficial for improving your bone density, but also we realize that as we get older, we lose those fast twitch muscle fibers, those type 2 muscle fibers. And so this jumping mechanism, this jumping pattern and practicing is gonna help stimulate a lot of those fast twitch muscle fibers. So the box jump is a great way that we can do that. So use the momentum of your arms. You're gonna jump onto a box or a small step, and I'm gonna ask you to step down to decrease the load on your knees or on your hips. So jumping up is also gonna be a little bit easier on the knees. And if you just step down, this is gonna be definitely manageable for you to work on. And when you do this, you're probably gonna be doing about 3 sets, and you can work on about 15 to 20 jumps at a time. And I understand you're gonna probably have to take some breaks as you're working on this, but over time you're working on building more repetitions and not really pushing the height, but really focus on those reps and getting as many reps as you can in a pain-free tolerance, but allowing that heart rate to come up and allowing those legs to feel strong, and really focus on nice, quick jumps. Very beneficial for improving your strength in your legs and the explosiveness in your legs. Now, when we're talking about bone health, we cannot forget how important our back muscles and our postural muscles are in keeping our spine resilient and strong. And so the last exercise that I'm gonna go over that I believe that can benefit a ton of people improving just your overall bone markers is working on some sort of pulling motion. Now, my favorite way to do that is by working on a pull-up. So I'm gonna show you how to do just a typical pull-up first, and then I'm gonna show you, if you can't hang from a bar, what an alternative option for this exercise can be. So hanging from a bar, I typically will go about shoulder width apart, and I'm wrapping my fingers around the bar here, and I'm just starting off with hanging, especially if I haven't done this before. Now, if you're familiar with doing pull-ups, you can focus on really pointing those elbows forward, trying to stay nice and tight with your body, and you're pulling your chin basically to the bar. Now, this is a pull-up, not a chin-up. A chin-up, we're gonna bring those hands closer, kind of facing us in this supinated grip. Pull-up, we're gonna ask you to kind of have your hands facing away, so palms are facing away. But really, we're focused on keeping those elbows in this scapular plane, okay? A lot of people you'll see, they'll keep their elbows at their side. So pull-ups can get very difficult. And I'm gonna eventually make a pull-up video in going over some of these mechanics, because I see a lot of people doing that incorrectly. So once again, you're starting hanging from a bar. This is obviously working a lot of your lat and your back muscles, which are gonna really keep your mid back and your lower back strong, okay? So you're hanging from the bar, Even if you're doing 1 or 2 reps at a time, this is still really beneficial. And you're pointing those elbows forward, staying nice and tight with your body, trying to get your chin over the bar, and then allow yourself to come down slowly. Now, I understand a lot of you at home are probably like, I just can't even do a pull-up, or maybe it's a little intimidating just hanging from a bar. A lot of gyms out there, especially the larger gyms that have machines, have lat pull downs, which is very similar to the same mechanics that you're working in a pull-up, except now you're sitting versus your body is hanging from a bar. I've kind of figured out a way to set this up here in my garage. And so same thing, your arms are going to be about shoulder width apart. And what you're focusing on is really trying to point that shoulder forward, pulling that bar all the way down, and then allowing yourself to go all the way up, okay? Also notice, just like in a pull-up, I have just a little backward lean. I'm not fully straight up pushing down where I'm feeling a ton of abs. I mean, you're gonna feel your core regardless, but I start off with a slight backward lean and really think about retracting or pulling those shoulder blades back, pointing those elbows forward, and trying to get that bar or PVC pipe all the way down, at least below my chin to my neck area, okay? With this lat pull down, it's gonna be just as effective, and as you build up strength in your back muscles, you can eventually start to work on hanging from a bar, and then eventually working on some pull-ups. So obviously there are a ton of exercises that you can use to help improve your bone health, but today I wanted to just go over my favorite exercises that I like to use, especially for my patients. So if you found this video helpful, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and if there's a specific topic that you'd like for me to cover, please leave it in the comment box below. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.